cities have raised their minimum wages above the federal one. Amazon, whose value topped an awesome $1 trillion in September, has been under political and economic pressure to pay its employees more. We listened to our critics, thought hard about what we wanted to do, and decided we wanted to lead, said Jeff Bezos, Amazon's founder and CEO. But Amazon may also be offering raises out of necessity. With the economy booming and unemployment near rock bottom, employers are having difficulty finding help. Amazon, with about 100 warehouses around the country, will soon need to hire more than 100,000 workers to pack and ship boxes during the holiday season. The wage increase takes effect next month. Amazon said the move will benefit more than 350,000 workers, including full-time, part-time, temporary, and seasonal positions. Employees at Whole Foods, owned by Amazon, will get the same raise. Current pay for warehouse workers at Amazon is at least $12.25 an hour in Omaha, Nebraska, $13 in Baltimore, and $16.50 in New York, according to recent job postings. Bob?
In case you haven't heard about this, they've been kind of blasting the airways. There's going to be a nationwide test today. 2 nationwide tests will be conducted Wednesday on emergency communications. The Federal Emergency Management Agency, in coordination with the Federal Communications Commission, will conduct tests via cell phones, radio, and TV. The Wireless Emergency Alert and the Emergency Alert System will conduct the test to assess the readiness to distribute emergency messages nationwide and determine if any improvements are needed. At 1:18 p.m. Central Daylight Time today, FEMA will begin sending a wireless emergency alert test message to wireless devices such as cell phones that are capable of receiving the signal. Most handsets will receive the alert within a few minutes, but others could take up to 30 minutes. The test message will bear the headline, Presidential Alert. The text will say, "This is a test of the National Wireless Emergency Alert System. No action is needed." The alert will have a special tone and vibration that will repeat twice. The test message had been scheduled for September, but was pushed back. 3 categories of alerts are sent through the alert system. Imminent threat alerts about emergencies, including extreme weather, amber alerts, and presidential alerts about emergencies of national consequence. Users may opt out of imminent threat and amber alerts, but cannot opt out of receiving presidential alerts. The emergency alert system test will start at 1:20 p.m. Central Daylight Time and will be distributed through radio and TV, including cable and satellite systems. The test will be similar to the monthly test message that interrupts programming for approximately 1 minute. More information is available at www.fema.gov/emergency-alert-test.
This article out of Indonesia, trucks carrying food for survivors of the earthquake on Indonesia's island rolled in with a police escort Tuesday to guard against looters, while the death toll from the disaster soared past 1,200. 4 days after the magnitude 7.5 earthquake and tsunami struck, supplies of food, water, fuel, and medicine had yet to reach the hardest hit areas outside Palu, the largest city that was heavily damaged. Many roads on the earthquake zone are blocked and communication lines are down. We feel like we are stepchildren here because all the help is going to Palu, said Mohammed Tafik, 38, from the town of Donggala, where 5 of his relatives were still missing. There are many young children here who are hungry and sick, but there is no milk or medicine. The death toll reached 1,234, National Disaster Agency spokesman Supo Peru Nagowo said in Jakarta, the capital. Hundreds of other people were injured, and uncounted bodies could still be buried in collapsed buildings in Sigi and Balarawo under mud caused by Friday's quake. The UN Humanitarian Office reported that needs are vast, with people urgently requiring shelter, clean water, food, fuel, and emergency medical care. Water is the main issue because most of the supply infrastructure has been damaged. UN representatives reported at the UN headquarters in New York. More than 25 countries offered assistance after Indonesia President Joko Widodo appealed for international help. Little of that, however, has reached the disaster zone, and increasingly desperate residents grabbed food and fuel from damaged stores and begged for help. Hogg said the government is coordinating emergency efforts, and UN and relief agencies are on the ground or en route. He said the agencies are working closely with the government to provide technical support. Bob?
From Washington, the Trump administration is quietly moving to weaken U.S. radiation regulations, turning to scientific outliers who argue that a bit of radiation damage is actually good for you, like a little bit of sunlight. The government's current decades-old guidance says that any exposure to harmful radiation is a cancer risk, and critics say the proposed change could lead to higher levels of exposure for workers at nuclear installations and oil and gas drilling sites, medical workers doing X-rays and CT scans, people living next to Superfund sites, and any member of the public who one day might find themselves exposed to a radiation release. The Trump administration already has targeted a range of other regulations on toxins and pollutants, including coal power plant emissions and car exhaust, that it sees as costly and burdensome for businesses. Supporters of the Environmental Protection Agency's new proposal argue that the government's current no-tolerance rule for radiation damage forces unnecessary spending for handling exposure and accidents at nuclear plants, in medical centers, and at other sites. This would have a positive effect on human health as well as save billions and billions and billions of dollars, said Edward Calabrese, a toxicologist at the University of Massachusetts, who is to be the lead witness at a congressional hearing Wednesday on the EPA's proposal. Calabrese, who made those remarks in a 2016 interview with a California nonprofit, was quoted by the EPA in its announcement of the proposed rule in April. He declined repeated requests for an interview with the Associated Press. The EPA declined to make an official with its radiation protection program available. The regulation change is now out for public comment. Radiation is everywhere, from potassium in bananas to the microwaves popping our popcorn. Most of it's benign, but what's of concern is the higher energy short-wave radiation like X-rays that can penetrate and disrupt living cells, sometimes causing cancer. As recently as this March, the EPA's guidelines for radiation effects advised current science suggests that there is some cancer risk to any exposure to radiation, even exposures below 100 millisieverts, an amount roughly equivalent to 25 chest X-rays or about 14 CT chest scans, slightly increase the risk of getting cancer in the future, the agency's guidance said. But that online guideline separate from the rule change proposal was edited in July to add a section emphasizing the low individual's odds of cancer. Calabrese and his supporters argue that smaller exposures of cell-damaging radiation and other carcinogens can serve as stressors that activate the body's repair mechanisms and can make people healthier. They compare it to physical exercise or sunlight. Mainstream scientific consensus on radiation is based on deceptive science, Calabrese says. Jan Bahia, a physicist whose work includes research with the National Academies of Science on Japan's Fukushima nuclear power plant accident in 2011, said the EPA proposal on radiation and other health threats represents voices generally dismissed by the great bulk of scientists. The EPA proposal would lead to increases in chemical and radiation exposures in the workplace, home, and outdoor environment, including the vicinity of Superfund sites, BAS wrote. At the level the EPA website talks about, the individual risk will likely be low, but not the cumulative social risk, BAS said. U.S. agencies for decades have followed a policy that there is no threshold of radiation exposure that is risk-free. The National Council on Radiation Protection and Measurement reaffirmed that principle this year after a review of 29 public health studies on cancer rates among people exposed to low-dose radiation. 20 of the 29 studies directly support the principle that even low-dose exposures cause a significant increase in cancer rates, said Roy Shore, Chief of Research at the Radiation Effects Research Foundation, a joint project of the United States and Japan. Scientists found that most of the other studies were inconclusive and decided that one was flawed. None supported the theory that there is some safe radiation level, Shore said. If there were a threshold that is safe to go below, those who profess that would have come up with some data, Shore said in an interview. Paul?
This article out of New York, scientists from the United States, Canada, and France won the Nobel Prize in Physics Tuesday for revolutionizing the use of lasers in research, finding ways to make them deliver more powerful flashes of light and even to act like tiny tweezers. Their work paved the way for laser eye surgery to improve vision and studies that can manipulate cells and their innards. Two winners also made history for other reasons. Arthur Ashkin, the American who developed optical tweezers, became the oldest Nobel Prize laureate at the age of 96. And Donna Strickland of the University of Waterloo in Canada became only the third woman to have won the Physics Nobel and the first in 55 years. Strickland and the third winner, Frenchman Gerard Moreau of the École Polytechnique and University of Michigan, developed a way to generate high-intensity, ultra-short bursts of laser light. They share half of the $1 million prize, while the other half goes to Ashkin, who worked at Bell Labs in New Jersey. Ashkin said he was pleasantly surprised when he got the call from Sweden. I'm very old and had given up worrying about things like Nobel Prizes, he told the Associated Press. He said he's working on solar energy research at his New Jersey home. These days, though, scientific research is a hobby, more or less, he told the official website of the Nobel Prize. I tell my wife that's the only thing I am really good at. The work of the three winners constitutes fundamental breakthroughs in physics that led to tools that are now being used all over science, said Robert Duckgraff, director of the Institute of Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. Sweden's Royal Academy of Sciences said Ashkin development of optical tweezers that can grab tiny particles such as viruses without damaging them realized an old dream of science fiction, using the tiny amount of pressure exerted by beams of light to move objects. That means lasers can be used to push, pull, or hold in place tiny objects such as atoms, molecules, and living cells. Optical tweezers created entirely new opportunities for observing and controlling the machinery of life, the Nobel Committee said. Working together, Strickland and Moreau helped develop a way to produce very brief and intense laser pulses that have broad industrial and medical applications, including laser eye surgery and highly precise machine cutting. The Academy said their 1985 article on the technique was revolutionary. With the technique we have developed, laser power has been increased about 1 million times, maybe even a billion, Moreau said in a video statement released by École Polytechnique. Bob?
We'll turn now to the local and legislative news. And this is a first in the World Herald article from Lincoln. Public access to one of the most beautiful spots in Nebraska is assured for another 25 years. The state reached a new lease agreement on Smith Falls State Park, a 250-acre site along the scenic Niobrara River that is home to the state's highest waterfall. The park is mainly on private land leased from the Krzyzanowski family, but the original 30-year lease on the park land was set to expire in 2020, and there were concerns that the state might not be able to hold on to the property, which provides visitors an easy hike to and under the chilly waters of the 63-foot-high waterfall. You don't know exactly what kind of circumstances a landowner might find themselves in and whether they want to renew or not renew, said Jim Douglas, director of the Nebraska Game and Parks Commission. It's never too soon to talk about renewing a lease. Douglas said a new 25-year lease was signed with the Krzyzanowski family in August. Terms of the lease were not disclosed. It's a special place, and I'm glad the public is going to be able to enjoy it for many more years to come, Douglas said. The continuance of public management is an exception to recent opposition in that area of north central Nebraska to public control of two other scenic places. In 2016, the Niobrara Council, a group of local landowners and officials, voted to vigorously oppose a $2 million proposal by the National Park Service to buy the property around Rocky Ford, a roaring Class 3 rapids that is a popular takeout point for canoe and float trips down the Niobrara. When federal ownership was denied, a local rancher purchased Rocky Ford. He has been trying without success so far to turn it over to a new owner so that public access can be guaranteed to the rapids, which are downriver from Smith Falls State Park east of Valentine, Nebraska. In 2010, an attempt was launched by the State Game and Parks Commission to purchase Snake River Falls and the Blue Ribbon trout fishing area adjacent to it, southwest of Valentine. But the plan was eventually scuttled by landowner opposition, and the land was purchased by a private fishing club. That club allows public access to view the falls, but not to fish. Retaining public management and access to Smith Falls is absolutely totally good news, according to Bruce Kennedy of Malcolm, the longtime president of Friends of the Niobrara Group, a group dedicated to preserving the river. In 1991, 76 miles of the Niobrara was declared a national scenic river. The group was really worried about losing the lease, Kennedy said. When Game and Parks is responsible, we're assured of good management of the area and also assured that the integrity of the area is not degraded, Kennedy said. About 200 acres of Smith Falls State Park is leased from the Krzyzanowski family, including the falls and campground. An additional 34 acres of pasture is owned by the state. Smith Falls is about midway through the best canoeing waters of the Niobrara and was a popular stopping point and campsite before the state established a park there in 1992. Kennedy said that in the old days, Fred Krzyzanowski in his bib overalls would amble down to his cow pasture near the river in the morning to collect a $1 fee for camping there overnight. The challenge, besides dodging cow piles for a campsite, was keeping a $1 bill from getting wet on the trip down the Niobrara, he said. Krzyzanowski, according to his obituary in 1998, bought the property to graze cattle and harvest hay and wasn't aware that the land had the state's highest waterfall as well as 6 smaller falls. A lot of on. After Game and Parks took over the site, a wooden walkway was built leading to the falls, and a historic steel truss bridge was placed across the Niobrara River to ease access to the falls and hiking trails. A shower house and visitor center also were added, along with primitive campsites along the gurgling stream. Douglas said that the commission is considering more improvements to the park now that a new lease has been signed. Paul?
Yeah, this kind of goes along with your article, Bob. Along a winding path at the Lincoln Children's Zoo, just north of the Safari Cafe near the flamingos and the bronze bears, sits a crocodile. He is new. The concrete slab on which his 16-foot, 1,100-pound self sits is still drying. A metal fence surrounds him, protecting him from the young visitors who will soon be able to crawl onto his long muzzle or tiptoe up the scales of his wide back. Look closely, for this statue has a story to tell, and the crux of the tale is carved carefully into the concrete around the curve of his tail. I can, I will. Those are Andrea Kubrick's words, or at least the ones the Lincoln East High School teacher adopted as her mantra as she lived her life in spite of the cancer first diagnosed 8 years ago. She had loved to travel long before the cancer, just like she loved teaching and running, and the disease didn't stop her. She made a bucket list and got to work. She was open and honest with her students. She made her journey another lesson in life for them. And the cross-country runners she and her husband coached at East took her mantra and ran with it, etched on their arms and emblazoned on their shirts. A crocodile became hers too, 4 years later, when the cancer she'd beat back twice returned. Years earlier, on one of 3 trips to Australia, an Aboriginal woman told Kubrick that her totem was a crocodile, a symbol for people who can turn any negative experience into a positive one. And so she embraced it, and stuffed crocodiles filled her classroom. She handed out small plastic crocodiles with "I can, I will" written on their bellies to teachers and friends, to patients and nurses at the Cancer Center. Before she died 3 years ago, she left a few very specific instructions for her parents, Ken and Estelle Baker, and her husband, Brian. She wanted her ashes to travel with her friends and her family, to be sprinkled across the vast world she'd love to explore. She wanted it to be places that were cool, said her mom. It would have to be worthy. And so her husband climbed the treacherous trail cut into the 1,488-foot rock formation in Utah's Zion National Park, known as Angel's Landing, and sprinkled some of Andrea's ashes at the top. Her parents have traveled the globe and left Andrea's ashes in rainforest and near waterfalls, in countries she'd seen and those she had yet to see. Friends sprinkled her ashes near the church in Hawaii, where she and Brian were married, and on a beautiful overlook on the road to Hana. They left their friends' ashes along a running trail in Canada, on the Olympic track in Spain, along a beach in Madagascar, and on Table Mountain overlooking Cape Town, South Africa. To date, her ashes have touched 8 states and 17 countries. Everyone we've asked to do it has taken it very seriously. They look for the perfect place to leave the ashes, said her mom. I think people have put a lot of thought and care and love into it. Andrea is still traveling the world with friends who carry her "I can, I will" inspiration with them to the top of mountains in Greece, the cliffs of Israel, and the beaches of Thailand. She's been there when they've run marathons with "I can, I will" written on their hands and their running gear, pushing them forward. Every season, the Spartan cross-country team wears pink uniforms with her initials in her honor to 2 meets. Each year, a student gets a scholarship in her name. And now her spirit is also a part of the zoo, because she had another request of her family. Use part of the memorials to support the place she'd loved since she was a kid. And so zoo director John Chappell suggested a statue and called Tom Hunt, an artist who owns Rat Studios in Fairbury, who is creating other sculptures for the zoo, including a red panda, giraffe, and tiger. The bakers in Kubrick loved the idea and named Hunt's crocodile Cricky, an Australian expression Andrea loved. When she'd come back from Australia, she drove us crazy, saying "Cricky," her mom said. Now Cricky is there for the kids. This is a kid-centered area, Chapeau said. Here's the whole goal. That's the whole goal. For kids to meet Cricky up close and personal. Just wait for the youthful imagination to take flight. Tuesday, Kaperik's parents and husband watched as Hunt carved the words, "I can, I will," into the concrete slab. They circled the new statue and snapped pictures, patted his nose, and deemed him perfect. And they were quite sure Andrea would approve. Kaperik can just hear his wife. She would be saying, "Cricky." Bob?
People will soon pay a bit more when frequenting some Blackstone District businesses. The Omaha City Council on Tuesday approved a portion of Blackstone as an enhanced employment area, meaning businesses within the area will charge a number of new taxes, including a new additional tax on food and drinks. The money, up to $22.6 million, will go into financing the restoration of the historic Blackstone Hotel. The council voted 6-1 for the new designation and for the hotel's developers to collect the extra taxes, with Councilwoman Amy Melton voting no. It goes into effect January 1. This is the city's fourth such district, and Melton has voted against all of them. The others are the Capital District, Top Golf, and the downtown landmark building, which the council approved last week. Each has different terms. The Blackstone project is the first to gain approval without a deadline for when the taxes will expire. Officials describe the designation as a self-imposed tax. People can vote with their feet, meaning that they pay the taxes only if they choose to go to those districts. Mayor Gene Stothert signed off on the request, and mostly praise was heard for the project at a public hearing last week. To qualify, a development must create 30 new jobs and $3 million in new investment. The money can be used for a number of things, like building sidewalks and parking garages. Melton said she might have changed her mind about Blackstone had the developers asked for the enhanced employment area instead of tax increment financing. But the developers, Tom McLeod, president of Clarity Development Company, and Matt Dwyer and Jay Lund of Green Slate Development, asked the city for both incentives. Together, the incentives represent about 40% of the project's total cost. The hotel project is estimated to be an investment of about $77.5 million. Under the designation approved Tuesday, people will pay a 3% tax on hotel rooms, namely at the Blackstone Hotel, a 1.95% tax on food and beverages. Diners at restaurants within the district would pay $11.76 in total taxes on a $100 bill. That takes into account the new 1.95% tax, the city's existing 2.5% restaurant tax, and 7% sales tax. A 1.95% tax on retail sales and services, though they wouldn't apply to tenants under lease now. They would be excluded until they renew their leases. 25 cents per square foot of commercial office space, which would increase 3% a year. $120 per apartment per year, which would increase 3% a year. The hotel's developer has said tenants would not be responsible for the fee, apartment owners would be. Councilman Brinker Harding pointed out that the extra taxes will be charged only at properties controlled by Clarity, Green Slate, or those that voluntarily agree. It affects businesses between 36th and 41st Street along Farnham, but not all. For example, Brothers Lounge isn't in the district and won't charge extra tax. Harding also noted that the city isn't at risk, only the developer is. Under an amendment approved Tuesday, there's no timeline on how long developers can collect the tax. It will expire when $22.6 million is collected.
Talking about development, when the city last formulated a downtown master plan in 2005 in Lincoln, it identified a number of catalyst projects that were expected to help spur further development. Among them were a new arena and development of the West Haymarket area, a civic square at 13th and P Street, and a mixed-use project including a parking garage at 13th and Q Streets. Those projects all came to fruition over the past 13 years, along with numerous others, as downtown saw more than $1 billion in development during that time. As city officials work toward a new master plan for downtown, catalyst projects are again a main focus. The 2018 plan that's under development includes 7 catalyst projects that officials hope will spur additional development. Most prominent on the list is the site of the now vacant Pershing Center on the block bounded by M and N Streets, 16th Street, and Centennial Mall. A draft of the plan includes several redevelopment possibilities for the block, almost all of which include a potential new downtown library. Other catalyst projects in the plan are, and I'll just summarize them, a 10-acre West Park that would extend from M to J Streets west of 6th Street and would include a dog park. An O Street corridor stretching from 9th Street east to 21st Street. Possible projects could include streetscape and facade improvements. Greenways along 11th Street and M Street that would take, okay, for some odd reason we're not switching over to the page. So I guess those are the projects I can read, and we'll jump over.
Well, I got a short one here. A Nebraska lawmaker wants to make sure sexual assault survivors know about their rights and about the help available to them. State Senator Kate Boltz of Lincoln announced plans Tuesday to introduce legislation toward that end in the 2019 legislative session. She said the proposed Sexual Assault Survivors Bill of Rights would establish a set of rights for survivors as they deal with law enforcement and the medical system. It would require that survivors be told about formal and informal supports available to them. There are many reasons why survivors of sexual assault choose not to come forward, but we must do all we can to ensure that victims are aware of the rights they hold in our criminal justice system, Bolt said. Learning more about what steps to take following sexual violence can help victims in a difficult time, she said. Bolt said she developed the bill with the assistance and support of the Nebraska Coalition to End Sexual and Domestic Violence. She introduced a similar bill in this year's legislative session. She said she decided to pursue the idea again after hearing from constituents in recent weeks. As spelled out in the proposal, the rights of survivors of sexual assault include the right to be treated with fairness, dignity, and respect, the right to consult with a sexual assault counselor or victim's advocate, the right to be informed, the right to be heard and participate in the criminal justice process, the right to timely disposition of the case, the right to notice about the status of the case, the right to apply for compensation.
And before we jump over to the obituary, since unfortunately we have quite a few, I'll finish up that article just briefly. Street improvements to 13th, 16th, and 17th streets, including converting sections from one-way to two-way. A downtown music district that would focus on the 14th and O Streets area, but would tie in other venues around downtown. And finally, a renewed focus on completing unfinished projects from the 2005 plan, including further developing the West Haymarket area and converting the K Street building owned by the city and county to private use. So now we will switch over to the obituaries. I will be reading from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Beer, James Beer. The celebration of life will be held at 11 a.m. October 20th at the Messenger Mortuary in Fountain Hills, Arizona. Memorial donations may be made to the charity of the donor's choice. Chastain, Diane Chastain, age 72 of Lincoln. Memorial service will be at 3 p.m. Thursday, October 4th at Roper & Sons Funeral Home on O Street. No visitation as cremation has occurred. Memorial contributions may be made to the family for future designation. Eli, Larry Eli, age 54. Additional information will be forthcoming. Garrison, Dennis Garrison, age 75. A memorial service and celebration of life will take place at 10 a.m. on Thursday, October 4th at the Church of the Nazarene in Woodland, California. Donations can be made in his name to the American Heart Association. Harmon, Eugene Harmon, age 94, of Lincoln. A graveside service will be held at 10:30 a.m. Friday, October 5th at Lincoln Memorial Park. Family and friends will meet at Gate 2 at 10:30. Memorials to the family for later designation. Boothurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home will be handling the arrangements. Hermanson, Donald Hermanson, age 72. A funeral is scheduled for 11 a.m. Friday, October 5th at Christ United Methodist Church on A Street. In lieu of flowers, please send donations to the American Heart Association. Roper and Sons is handling arrangements. Johnson, Lyle Johnson, age 80. Memorial service will be held at 10 a.m. on Friday, October 5th at Lincoln Memorial Funeral Home on 14th Street. Kaler, Marcella Kaler, age 91, of Lincoln. Funeral service will be held at 11 a.m. Thursday, October 4th at Roper and Sons Chapel on O Street. Memorials may be given to Faith Evangelical Lutheran Church on Adams Street. Knox, Nina Knox, age 82, of Quincy, California. No other information is available. Liming, Everett Liming, age 79. There are no services planned at this time. His wishes were for cremation. Newton, Bernard Newton, age 88, of Lincoln. Rosary will be held at 7 p.m. Thursday, October 4th at St. John the Apostle Catholic Church. Memorial Mass will be at 11 a.m. Friday, October 5th at St. John the Apostle Catholic Church on Vine Street. Memorials to the Knights of Columbus or DAV. No visitation as cremation has occurred. Prefert, Evelyn Prefert, age 98. Services at 11 p.m. Monday, October 8th at Southview Disciples of Christ. Memorials to Southview Disciples of Christ Church. Roper and Sons is handling the arrangements. Reel, Phyllis Reel, age 75, of Geneva. Services will be at 1 p.m. Friday, October 5th at Metcalf Chapel. Graveside services to follow at Lincoln Memorial Park. Memorials to be sent to the family. Kingman, Sabata, Candy Sabata, age 70, of Kingman, Arizona. Celebration of Life and luncheon will be at 3 p.m. Saturday, October 13th at Unity Lincoln on North 68th in Lincoln. Memorials to the Kingman Regional Medical Center Hospice. Snook, Zagrida Snook, age 73, of Lincoln. Memorial services will be at 3 p.m. Friday, October 5th at Roper and Sons Funeral Home on O Street. Memorials are suggested to the Latvian Evid Lutheran Church or Dagavas Van Agi, Inc. Strobe, Everett Strobe, age 88, of Lincoln. Celebration of Everett's life will be on Thursday, October 4th at Boothurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home at 10 a.m. Memorials to Little White Dog Rescue and the Backpack Program. Thomas, Vivian Thomas, age 78, of Lincoln. A celebration of Vivian's life will be at 11 a.m. at the Southview Christian Church on South 22nd Street. Memorials may be directed to the Southview Christian Church. Boothurst, Mazer, and Love Funeral Home will be handling the arrangements. Walla, Louise Walla, age 94. Services will be held at 10:30 a.m. on Thursday, October 4th at Faith Lutheran Church on Adams Street. Lincoln Colonial Chapel is handling the arrangements. And finally, Dorothy White, age 93 of Lincoln. Funeral service will be at 10 a.m. Thursday, October 4th at the Good Shepherd Lutheran Church on Wildbriar Lane. Memorials to Good Shepherd Lutheran Church or PKD Foundation in Kansas City, Missouri. Arrangements entrusted to Roper and Sons Funeral Services. Bob?
And these are the obituaries from the Omaha World Herald for Wednesday, October 3. Anderson, Sandra Ann Anderson, age 61. Well, they will have an open house reception from 12 to 3 p.m. Saturday, October 6th at Boys Town Visitor Center on Flanagan Boulevard. Arbor Cremation Society is handling the arrangements. ARPS, Patricia A. ARPS, age 72. There will be a complete notice later. Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Heafy Hoffman DeVore Cutler. Bowerman, Mary Ann Bowerman, age 86. Funeral service Friday, October 5 at 11 a.m. with visitation 1 hour prior at the Crosby Swanson Funeral Home on West Center Road. Memorials may be directed to American Lung Association in Nebraska. And the West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is actually responsible for the arrangements. So I don't understand why Swanson is being used for the funeral. Cash, Timothy L. Cash, age 65. He did not wish for a funeral, but rather a celebration of life. It will be held at the VFW 2503 at 8904 Military Road on October 4 from 5 to 8 p.m. Chapel of Memories on Arbor Street is handling the arrangements. Chamberlain, Harriet M. Chamberlain, age 81. Memorial service Friday, October 5 at 10:30 a.m. at the Emmanuel Lutheran Church on Galvin Road in Bellevue. Memorials are to Emmanuel Lutheran Church, the Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Heafy Hoffman DeVore Cutler. DeVerich, Ellen N. DeVerich, age 99. Services Saturday, October 6th at 9 a.m. at Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints on Spalding Street. Forest Lawn Memorial Park, it will be the interment. Heafy Hoffman DeVore Cutler West Center Chapel. Erickson, Catherine H. Erickson, age 87. Private family gathering, memorial gathering, Saturday, October 6th from 1 to 3 p.m. with family receiving friends at the Craig Fire Hall. Memorials to the family for later designation. Peelan Funeral Services in Oakland, Nebraska is handling the arrangements. Fichtelman, Carol L. Fichtelman, age 84. Crosby Burkett Swanson Golden Funeral Home on West Center is handling the arrangements, and West Lawn Hillcrest actually is where the visitation will be on October 4. It does from 5 to 7 p.m. The funeral service will start at 7 p.m. West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Flippin, Margaret L. Flippin, age 88. A memorial service will be held in the spring to celebrate her life. Details to follow. There is no funeral home listed. Geisler, Joseph M. Geisler, age 57. Memorial Mass Thursday at 10:30 a.m. at St. Wenceslas Catholic Church. Memorials may be made to Scott Catholic High School or Ducks Unlimited, Gretna Chapter, John A. Gentleman Mortuaries on Pacific Street. Goodwin, Janine J. Goodwin, age 56. Private services were held. Brahman Mortuary, 72nd Street Chapel. Gray, Stephen Steele Gray, age 82. It doesn't have any funeral listed. The Keith D. Bigelow Funeral Directors of Okmulgee, Oklahoma is handling the arrangements. Haddix, Bryce Gary Haddix, age 54, private family service, West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home on Center Street. Henry, Ora Lee Henry, age 82. There will be a funeral service 11 a.m. Thursday At Sharon SDA, 3336 Lake Street, Raider Mortuary, Ames Chapel. Herrick, Mary G. Herrick, age 71. Services Thursday, October 4 at 11 a.m. at the West Center Chapel of Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hillebrand, Mary Lou E. Hillebrand, age 61, Mass of Christian burial, 10 a.m. Saturday, October 6th at St. Patrick's Catholic Church on West Maple in Elkhorn. Memorials are suggested to the Nebraska Humane Society or Colorectal Cancer Alliance. Forest Lawn Funeral Home and Cemetery is handling the arrangements. Hoffman, Douglas J. Hoffman, age 48, Mass of Christian burial Thursday, 10 a.m. at the St. Gerald Catholic Church on Q Street. Memorials to Hoffman Children Education Fund, Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Hoffman, Virginia M. Hoffman, age 73, Mass of Christian burial Thursday, October 4 at 10 a.m. at St. Gerald Catholic Church on Q Street. In lieu of flowers, memorials to Salvation Army, Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Jackson, Patsy Linnell Jackson, services to be held at a later date, Kaler Dolch Mortuary on Washington Street in Papillion. Jensen, Marius J. Maury Jensen, age 92, a veteran, memorial service to be announced, Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Johnson, Emmy Shorty Johnson, age 105. Funeral service 11 a.m. Friday at Ebenezer Baptist Church on Fowler Avenue. Thomas Funeral Home on North 24th Street is handling the arrangements. Johnson, Heather A. Johnson, age 51. Mass of Christian burial Saturday, October 6th at 10:30 a.m. at Mary Our Queen Catholic Church on South 118th Street. Memorial suggested to Mary Our Queen Church, Nebraska Humane Society, or Nebraska Wildlife Rehab. Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Kelly, Clifford Franklin Cliff Kelly, age 91, a veteran. Funeral service 2 p.m. at the Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler. Memorials will be directed by the family. Klinghorn, April S. Klinghorn, age 37, celebration of life service 9:30 a.m. Thursday at the Raider Mortuary at 50th and Ames Chapel. Kistler, David R. Kistler, age 86, no services will be held, no funeral home is listed. Confirst, Joyce E. Confirst, this is Konfrst, age 71, of Glenwood, Iowa. Funeral service Thursday, October 4 at 10:30 a.m. at the Peterson Mortuary in Glenwood, Iowa. Memorials may be directed to the Glenwood Fire and Rescue. Lotka, Elizabeth A. Lotka, maiden name Gradoville, age 85. Mass of Christian burial Friday, October 5 at 10 a.m. at Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church. Memorials are suggested to the church, Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Metz, Michael P. Metz, MD. Services are pending. He was 63 years old. Minford, Lois Minford, age 85. Funeral 10 a.m. Saturday, October 6th at Murray Christian Church. Memorials to Murray Fire and Rescue Squads. Roby Funeral Home in Plattsmouth is handling the arrangements. She was of Louisville. Mulcahy, Stephen E. Mulcahy, age 57. Mass of Christian burial Friday, October 5 at 11 a.m. at Holy Cross Catholic Church on Woolworth Avenue. Memorials may be directed to the family. Heafy Hoffman DeVork Cutler, West Center Chapel. Niederhaus, Jean Ruby Niederhaus, maiden name Wickless, age 71. Celebration of life service at 11 a.m. Saturday, October 6th at Dundee Presbyterian Church on Underwood Avenue. Memorials to Dundee Presbyterian Church or Torchbearers, Albania, Raider Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel. Nixon, Denise Marie Nixon, age 44, of Gretna. Memorial celebration of life, 2 p.m. Saturday, October 6th at Crosby Burkett Swanson Golden Funeral Home. There are no memorials listed. Oleg, Linda K. Oleg, age 69, celebration of life is at 10:30 a.m. Friday, October 5 at the Butheris Mazer and Love Funeral Home in Lincoln. She was from Lincoln. Memorials are suggested to the Lincoln Public Libraries and the Lincoln Children's Library, or the online condolence, the Butheris Mazer and Love is handling the arrangements. Pavel, Rosella Pavel, age 79. Funeral service is Saturday, October 6th at 4 p.m. at Thanksgiving Lutheran Church in Bellevue, Nebraska. Memorials to the Josie Harper Hospice House, Thanksgiving Lutheran Church in Bellevue, Pancreatic Cancer Research, Buffett Cancer Center, Omaha. Good Mortuary in Nebraska City is handling the arrangements. Percival, Jean E. Percival, age 72, maiden name Timmerman. Service at 11 a.m. Thursday, October 4 at the Raider Mortuary on 108th Street. Pogge, Philip H. Pogge, age 95, a veteran. Mass of Christian burial Friday, October 5 at 11 a.m. at St. Leo Catholic Church with military honors. The family suggests memorials to the Philip H. and Rosemary Pogge Family Scholarship Fund at Holy Name Grade School, John A. Gentleman Mortuary on 72nd Street. Rank, Brian L. Rank, age 48, memorial service Friday, October 5 at 5:30 p.m. at City Light Church on Oakview Drive in Omaha. Westlawn Hillcrest on Center Street, handling the arrangements. Rosa, John J. Rosa, that's R-O-Z-A, age 99. Funeral service at 11 a.m. at Bethany Funeral Home on Harrison Street. Memorials have been suggested to the Oakland Heights Nursing Home on Engdahl Avenue in Oakland, Nebraska. Silberg, Howard Bruce Silberg, age 78, a veteran, member of the National Guard and a Mason. Celebration of life and time of sharing Thursday, October 4 at 4:30 p.m. at the West Center Chapel of Hefe Hoffendorf Cutler. Memorials are suggested to Opera Omaha, Omaha Symphony, UNO Friends of Art, and Joslin Museum. Smith, Gary L. Smith, MD, age 78, a veteran. He proudly served his country in the United States Naval Reserve as lieutenant commander until 1974. The family requests donations be made to the VNA, Visiting Nurses Association of Northwest Indiana. There is no funeral home listed and no date listed for a funeral. Staub, Arlene A. Staub, S-T-A-A-B, age 82. Mass of Christian burial Friday, October 5 at 10 a.m. at St. Robert Bellarmine Catholic Church on Pacific Street. Memorials will be directed by the family. Hefe Hoffendorf Cutler, West Center Chapel. Wilbur, William H. Bill Wilbur, age 78, Mass of Christian burial Friday, October 5, 10 a.m. at St. Philip Neri Catholic Church on North 30th Street. Memorial, no, there are no memorials listed. Westlawn Hillcrest West Center is handling the arrangements. Wilder or Wilder, Jane C. Wilder, age 94, maiden name is Olin, O-L-E-N, complete notice later, John A. Gentleman Mortuaries on Pacific Street. Davick Roger Dale, Davick, age 85, a veteran. Celebration of life service Saturday, October 6th at 11 a.m. at Thanksgiving Church in Bellevue with military honors by American Legion Post 331, memorials to American Lung Association, Bellevue Memorial Chapel of Hefe Hoffendorf Cutler on Hancock Street in Bellevue. Davis Constance Patricia Davis, maiden name McGinnis, age 90. A remembrance of Connie's life will be held for family and friends on Friday, October 5 at Exarban Senior Living on South 70th Street in Omaha. Memorial donations should be directed to the University of Nebraska Foundation for the John and Constance Davis Memorial Scholarship, Civil Engineering. West Lawn Hillcrest, West Center Road is handling the arrangements. Woosley, Lorna May Woosley, age 87, private family service planned. Arbor Cremation Society is handling the arrangements on South 125th Avenue. And my final listing is ZARP. Peter W. Zarp Jr., age 85, a veteran, celebration of life service, 1 p.m. Friday at Raider Mortuary at 50th and Ames Chapel. Military honors by Canesville Riders.
Listeners, memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska, 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book listener and supporter.
Thank you, Paul. We'll return to Paul and Bob in just a moment.
11:01.
Yeah, but it's amazing, of how you just have to start running like anything to get to 11:01 or 11 or whatever.
Yeah, that wears you out.
Yeah.
Okay, friends. It's 11 o'clock, and that means it's time for the senior lunch menus. Here comes Jamie Nielsen.
Oh my God, this is a mess.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, October 3rd. Happy Hump Day. The meals on the menu for today is oven fried chicken breast,
5B.
potatoes and gravy,
So the living is in the B section today. Okay.
banana muffins flavored in 1% milk.
And just a reminder, you can hear the senior lunch.
So you're just going to start second, right?
Yeah.
Here on Radio Talking
Good.
Book.
I'll let you catch your breath.
I need to breathe there.
The oxygen will be coming in shortly.
Join the Omaha chapter of the National Federation of the Blind in Outlook, Nebraska.
It's supposed to be bigger. Oh my God, it keeps getting, the more obituaries will be.
Yeah.
Do you dream in color? The event will take place Thursday, October 4th from 7 p.m. to
Man, I
9
don't
p.m.
know that I'm going to go down to
Nebraska.
Blackstone to any
This
of the
is
restaurants
story
down
of
there.
courageous blind high
That's
school
crazy.
students striving to
$11.76 tax on a $100 bill.
achieving their dreams. The entire film is audio described.
I guess I understand the reason why, though.
Open for the event at
I'll let somebody else fund that.
6 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Admission is free.
I don't know that I'm trying to think of what restaurants I go to that are in that area right now.
Please call Lisa Kelly at 402-614-3331.
The Cornflower Ice Cream Place,
Again,
I think, is in that
that's
area.
402-614-3331. Or you can
That's a
email
great ice cream place.
bkpolpeter.
Never been.
Oh, it's really good.
BKPOLLPETER.
There's always a line out the door.
at
Almost.
Yeah.
Always.
Please join
But
us.
my
on Thursday,
son and daughter-in-law were
October
living in
4th,
Rochester, New York. There was an ice cream
and
place
learn
there,
how
and
you
that,
too
I mean,
can
no matter
live the
when you
life
went, there
you
was a
want.
line. I mean, it
The
was just
reading of the
crazy.
Omaha World Herald
And it was
the
good.
Journal Star are brought to you today by WellCare Health Plans, proudly focused exclusively on providing government-sponsored managed care services through Medicaid and Medicare prescription drug plans to families, children, and seniors in Nebraska. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska.
Thank you very much, Michael. Let's return now to Studio A for the second hour of the live reading of the Lincoln Journal Star and the Omaha World Herald. Once again, coming to the microphones here are the dynamic duo of Bob Godding and Paul Murphy. Go ahead, gentlemen.
Okay, yes, the dynamic. All right, that's how dynamic we can be on the editorial page. This article will be is written by Hank Bounds, who is the president of the University of Nebraska. Recently, I had the opportunity to travel the state to talk with Nebraskans about the work of their university and their ideas for the future. Every place I went, Kearney, Grand Island, McCook, North Platte, Scottsbluff, York, I was struck by Nebraskans' excitement about what's ahead. And I was again reminded why it's so important for me to to spend as much time as possible meeting with students, faculty, and staff who carry out the university's mission every day and getting a firsthand look at the impact of their work. From agriculture to healthcare, from transforming the lives of 52,000 young people each year to producing the workforce of the future, the University of Nebraska's reach across the state is significant. I saw that again and again in one community after another in conversations with business leaders, community members, and policymakers alike. At UNK, I saw impressive changes in the campus's footprint, such as the beginning of a new STEM education building that will be a game changer for the rural workforce. I heard about UNK's strategy to support at-risk students, like those who are the first in their families to attend college, which are having a dramatic impact on retention and graduation rates. In the Panhandle, I joined with business leaders to talk about how we can work together to build a competitive economy for Nebraska's future and university's vital role in supplying the talent and workforce necessary for growth. I shared stories of Nebraska's leadership, like in national defense, evidenced by the university's $92 million contract renewal from the U.S. Air Force to continue our anti-terrorism research. Nebraskans may not know, for example, that a UNO faculty member is a world expert on understanding the psychology of extremist groups like the Islamic State. And I asked Nebraskans to continue to partner with us, so together we can continue to lead the way into the future. We are on an upward trajectory, but we cannot maintain our momentum without our partners whose support helps ensure affordable excellence at their university. One area where Nebraska and the university have a long tradition of global leadership is agriculture. For almost 150 years, the UN and UNL's Institute for Agriculture and Natural Resources have contributed to advancement in agriculture that have helped farmers and ranchers be more productive and improve the quality of life for people around the world. I got a taste of the breadth of our work in agriculture during my statewide travels, which included stops at UNL's research and extension centers in North Platte and Scotts Bluff. It is remarkable to know that work being done at extension centers in the middle of the country is having an impact around the world. In North Platte, UNL has an entomologist who is a leading expert on the western bean cutworm, one of the top pests of corn. Her studies on the pest and what strategies could be effective against it have improved yields and saved farmers and ranchers untold dollars. And that's one faculty member among thousands at one extension center among dozens of university facilities across the state. I could list countless other examples. UNMC experts are engaged in reducing the impact of tractor rollovers, the number one cause of farm injury or death. Our Doherty Water for Food Global Institute, drawing on the talents of 110 faculty across the campuses, has supported innovations like drone use to capture real-time crop moisture data. Our partnerships with farmers and ranchers to advance agriculture have never been more important. The world's population is projected to reach $9.6 billion people by 2050. Demand for food will double. Food and water insecurity is an urgent humanitarian and international security challenge. Fortunately, the University of Nebraska has the expertise necessary to develop solutions. I could not be prouder of the leadership of our faculty and staff, nor more excited about our opportunities to grow our impact even further. Bob?
This is an editorial from the World Herald editorial board entitled Uncertainties for Auto Sector New Trade Agreement. The Trump administration calls the new trade agreement with Canada and Mexico the USMCA for United States Mexico-Canada agreement. That's fine. President Donald Trump has made clear his disdain for NAFTA and his desire to replace it. But a better name for this new agreement would be NAAA, North American Auto Agreement. By far, the heart of this agreement is its far-ranging provisions by which the president seeks to compel automakers into shifting more production into the United States. Many uncertainties surround how car makers will respond, what market conditions may result, and how the industry's long-term competitiveness against lower-cost foreign competition will be affected. The immediate bottom line, in any case, is positive. Because of the overall result from the Monday announcement, the Trump administration did not scrap NAFTA without a workable substitute. Such a situation would have short-circuited countless economic and legal provisions linking the three countries. That possibility of major economic disruption rightly worried U.S. agricultural producer groups and manufacturers over the past year as trade negotiations dragged on amid sometimes strident rhetoric from the president. Instead, after down-to-the-wire jostling between U.S. and Canadian negotiators last weekend, the three countries had good news that could be summed up in one word: stability. The new agreement, with the major exception of the auto provisions, involves relatively few major changes from the Clinton-era trade agreement. Some adjustments on intellectual property and financial services are sensible and constructive. Others, such as the small opening of Canada's dairy market to U.S. producers, are modest. U.S. negotiators, to their credit, helped the negotiations by ultimately agreeing to compromise on or jettison some U.S. proposals that the Canadians emphatically opposed as deal breakers. A key example was the resolution process to handle specific trade disputes. The agreement exceeded 1,800 pages with follow-up negotiations still ahead, amounts to a far-ranging government intervention in the operations of the U.S. auto sector. This NAAA presents automakers with big decisions to make in adjusting their global supply chains. Multiple provisions insisted on by the Trump administration aim to restrict U.S. car makers' ability to base production in lower wage Mexico and to use foreign auto parts as part of the production process. But there's also a possibility that automakers would maintain much of their current production practices and risk U.S. imposition of financial penalties. Either way, economists agree the agreement means an increase in U.S. vehicle prices. An additional factor raising auto prices are the hefty tariffs the Trump administration is maintaining on imports of foreign steel and aluminum, inflating the input costs for U.S. industries. The CEO of Ford says the tariffs will increase his company's manufacturing costs in 2018 and 2019 by $1 billion. It's good news that three North American governments can maintain their basic economic connections, but how this agreement will turn out for the auto sector is far from clear. At this point, the one thing certain is higher costs for U.S. car buyers. Paul?
This article from the editorial board of the Lincoln Journal-Star. The few numbers available that track violence against Native women are sobering. Native women are 10 times more likely to be murdered than other Americans, per the Department of Justice, and homicide is the third leading cause of death among Native females between the ages of 10 and 24. 8 in 10 will experience violence at some point in their lifetimes, according to the National Institute of Justice. And in light of a recent Associated Press investigation that detailed the jurisdictional maze of tribal, state, and federal authorities, this horrific problem calls for cooperation among lawmakers, law enforcement agencies, and Native leaders to find solutions to curb this epidemic. What makes solving this problem difficult is that no single entity is to blame. A confusing system is. Tribal police agencies or the Bureau of Indian Affairs provide law enforcement on reservations, all of which have different criminal codes, while the FBI has jurisdiction but can't investigate every crime. Accordingly, most of the progress is being made at the state level through both advocacy groups and state houses. Washington's legislature passed a bill that asked its state patrol to determine the best ways to increase resources to better identify missing Native women. Lincoln Senator Patty Pansing Brooks and Gordon Senator Tom Brewer, the legislature's lone Native lawmaker, are working with various stakeholders before planning to introduce a similar measure next January. The Journal-Star editorial board is encouraged by this because Nebraska bears a moral obligation to help the tribes who suffered on account of the blind eye turned toward white clay for more than a century. Until its store's liquor licenses were rescinded last year, the speck of a town in Chariton County poured inconceivable amounts of alcohol onto South Dakota's officially dry Pine Ridge Reservation. Whether it was indifference or tacit approval, Nebraska helped fuel any number of societal problems that will take countless years and dollars to rectify. Violence is merely one of the symptoms stemming from years of inaction. The unsolved murder of Sherry Woundedfoot, who was discovered beaten and unconscious in white clay in 2016, is far from the only such case. However, the gruesome nature and relative recentness of her death make it one of the most well-known. Justice for Woundedfoot and other Native women who were victims of violent crimes is imperative. But any effort to protect this population would be incomplete if it did not look forward to, as well as back, trying to solve cold cases as well as aiming to prevent future violence. Like any state attempting to react to this previously underreported crisis, Nebraska is playing catch-up. Still, crafting a plan that will help authorities work together to better document and respond to violence against Native women is vital to turn the tide on this scourge. Bob?
From the Omaha Public Pulse, a letter from Stephen Bloodworth of Omaha. What is the purpose of political lawn signs? Political lawn signs will litter our community until the November election, and some will remain in place for a while after. What purpose do they serve? I doubt that they change the minds of other voters. Perhaps the size of a sign indicates a person's degree of support for a candidate. If you know that you disagree with your neighbor's political worldview, lawn signs may tell who you not to vote for. These candidate signs certainly serve the needs of some to broadcast their political beliefs to the rest of us, and they do show some of the geographical political differences within our city. Rarely do you see various political parties represented in one collection of signs, evidencing the polarization of politics in our world today. For me, they remind me of the importance of voting and that an election is coming up. Steve Martin of Omaha writes, thank you, Senator Jeff Flake of Arizona, for standing up for justice and the integrity of the Senate Judiciary Committee. So Matt Berkshire of Omaha writes, whether you believe the allegations of sexual assault or not, Brett Kavanaugh clearly doesn't have the temperament to be on the Supreme Court after his testimony last week. I also don't understand why Kavanaugh is the hill the Republican Party is willing to die on. There's nothing special about this guy. Why don't they just pick someone else who will do all the things they want them to do, but who doesn't have all the sexual assault allegations and can at least pretend to have a level head? If he is confirmed, he'll stand as a monument to what the Republican Party thinks of women. The Sonia Switzer of Omaha writes, according to the World Health Organization, there are 283 million men and women who face alcohol problems. Highest prevalence is in Europe and the Americas. The article, UN calls excessive drinking serious threat, in the September 24 World Herald, says that more must be done to reverse the trend of alcohol consumption. A good place to begin would be for the finger-pointing vocal critics of a man's drinking habits 35 years ago to empty their own refrigerators. And finally, from Bill and Mary Ellen Saladchek of Gretna, we would like very much to thank the ladies who paid for our meal at Cheddar's in Omaha on September 14. We were very surprised and appreciated it very much. They heard us tell the waitress that it was our 55th wedding anniversary and they wanted to pay for our meal.
Cool. All right, it's 11:20. It's time for us to switch over to today's living and entertainment. This article, which is normally Dear Doctor or Nutrition, it's kind of interesting. This was written by Barbara Quinn. There is an unofficial condition coined orthorexia, in which a person is excessively preoccupied with eating healthy food. I'm pretty sure my three amigas and I did not suffer from that on our recent horseback adventure. First stop, when we arrived in Denver before heading to the Wild Blue Yonder, Trader Joe's. 4 chattering women throwing food into one basket got the attention of at least one shopper. "Are you ladies going to a party?" he asked. "Horseback riding for 3 days," I said, as we tossed everything from nuts and cheese to bottled water and wine into our cart. "Looks like you're going to have fun," he smiled. We sure did. After loading horses, saddles, hay, and suitcases into the trailer, we made our way to Fort Robinson State Park in western Nebraska, 22,000 acres of old Western history and the same horse stalls used by the cavalry in the late 1800s. What made this trip work, besides the fact that we wanted to spend more time in the saddle than we did in the kitchen, were our similar food preferences. Breakfast was coffee with, take your pick, spinach, scrambled eggs, and toast, or blueberries, yogurt, and granola. Lunch was ready to make salad mix and homemade cabbage rolls, and our first night dinner was simply a delicious potpourri of cheeses, crackers, raw vegetables, and hummus dip. Bottled water for the trail and wine for our evening talks on the prairie, and we were happy cowgirls. One highlight of this trip, or at least I thought so, was a 21-mile drive, 14 of them on a desolate dirt road, from our cabin to a tiny frontier town called the High Plains Homestead, and its adjoining restaurant called the Cook Shack. I had called a few days earlier to make a reservation for dinner. "We don't have a menu for Tuesday planned yet," a woman's voice told me, "but just a minute." She paused. He, I later found out he was her husband, the chef, said he can make hillbilly Phillies steak sandwiches. "Hillbilly Philly steak sandwiches," I repeated. "That would be just fine." And they were complete with our choice of beans, coleslaw, 3-bean, or cucumber salads. And since we were the last customers of the night, the 4 of us split the last piece of homemade coconut cream pie, while an old picture of Clint Eastwood's High Plains Drifter squinted at us from the rustic wall. A few days later, we ended our journey at my daughter and son-in-law's ranch with a homegrown steak dinner followed by 1 or 2 cautious sips of homemade moonshine in Tom's Man Cave, aka the bunkhouse. And that's all I'm going to say about that. We won't soon forget our days of horseback riding through grassy meadows to the top of pine-covered ridges. Our shared meals and long rides nourished each of us in special ways. Thanks for the memories, dear cowgirls.
This is the Ask Amy Dickinson column. Dear Amy, my father-in-law is a sex offender who abused his own daughters when they were children. He spent my husband's middle school and high school years in prison. I spent time in this home when dating my husband. His father and I never had any problems, but ultimately I made the decision that I would not be involved with his parents after they continuously disrespected boundaries of mine. I have not dictated to my husband regarding him having a relationship with them and don't have any interest in doing so. My problem is we have young children, a 4-year-old daughter and a 2-year-old son. As our daughter has grown, I have become very worried about my judgment in ever letting our children spend time at our grandparents' house. I had relented earlier on and let my husband take the kids to their house, but now I feel it is wrong to trust them to go over there. I feel helpless since I do not attend with them. My kids have lots of cousins that they love. They will be excluded from activities if I put my foot down and don't let them go to that house. I feel guilty and lost. I don't want to make my husband feel bad. His family has already been torn apart because of this. No one will talk about the abuse that took place, and it's almost as if it never happened. They cut the daughters who were abused out of their lives. I don't want to insult anyone or hurt my husband. What should I do? Signed, Worried Wife. Dear Worried, imagine this. You won't walk across the railroad tracks on a blind curve. Instead, you send your young children scampering across with no knowledge or information, no empowering education, and no ability to discern about any possible dangers. Granted, these girls are with their father when they are at their grandparents, but from what you describe about this family, the parents have successfully banished his victims, have erased this very serious crime. It sounds as if he served at least 5 years from their family narrative and are comfortable having children interact with a convicted sex offender in their home. Please never subject your children to a situation you aren't willing to face yourself. You should either be brave enough to be with them, or you should make sure their father is empowered and vigilant. As a sex offender, your father-in-law is legally prevented from having access to children in schools or in the neighborhood. And yet his own family, the people who know the most about his history, are placing children in his path. I can understand why you don't want to interfere with your husband's relationship with his father, but you must advocate for your children. Talk with your husband about this and develop a strategy. Do this as parents and partners. Dear Amy, our 20-year-old son is going out with an 18-year-old girl. She has access to his phone and has been texting us using his cell phone, pretending he is the person writing. Both my son and she have acknowledged that she has been the actual author of many texts to us. When confronted, my son says it was no secret and that it is a normal thing for teenagers to do. Both my husband and I are perplexed by this outrageous behavior. We wonder whether this is a cultural norm of the young generation. We no longer trust that messages are actually from our son. Signed, Baffled. Dear Baffled, this is the immature behavior of two immature people. That having been said, you could also text from your spouse's phone. It doesn't actually matter who is doing the typing as long as the thoughts expressed represent your own. Whenever you receive text from your son's number, you should assume that these texts represent his thoughts or ideas, even if they weren't typed by him. Dear Amy, concerned about safety, asked for advice regarding her high-risk, thrill-seeking boyfriend. I think he should connect with a production company looking for brave stuntmen. There, he would learn that science, technology, and logistics play a huge role in making what seems deadly become survivable. If he is really interested in doing what looks stupid, he should sign up for training and wise up on his high-risk survival skills. Signed, SPS. Dear SPS, several readers suggested a future in stunt work for this guy, although I suspect he lacks the discipline. I love the idea.
Okay, since we don't have medical doctor information today, we have the Dear Food Doc. I just had the best ice cream ever at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. UW-Madison makes their own Babcock brand ice cream on campus. Why is the UW ice cream so much better than the University of Nebraska? Is it just the Wisconsin cows, or is there more dairy science involved? Signed, UW alum living in Lincoln. My goodness, what blasphemy. And just days before our Huskers take on those big bad Badgers from up north. Sure, Wisconsin is America's dairyland state, but does that necessarily mean their university makes the best ice cream ever? Let's review what it takes to make really good ice cream. First, you have to start with the very best ingredients. Most important is fresh cream. While location may be important in real estate, cream from Nebraska cows is just as good as cream from Wisconsin. Cream provides richness, creaminess, and fullness. Most ice creams contain enough cream to give 10% fat, but the more the better. Premium brands contain up to 15 to 20% fat. For the record, the ice cream made at the UNL dairy store contains about 12% fat, the same as the University of Wisconsin dairy store. However, Wisconsin also makes a few premium flavors with much more cream. Perhaps you enjoyed your alma mater ice cream from Wisconsin, more than UNL ice cream because you ate one of their premium flavors? If so, comparing the two would not be a fair comparison. Let's briefly consider the other ingredients. The source of sweetener is also critical. Regular sugar is generally considered to be the best. However, many expert ice creamologists also add a small amount of corn syrup to enhance smoothness and mouthfeel. Of course, you cannot make great ice cream without high-quality flavoring agents. Real vanilla might be expensive, but there is no comparison between the real thing and artificial versions. The same goes for fruit and other flavors. That's nearly all you need to make ice cream. However, most commercial ice creams also contain stabilizers to improve textures, melting properties, and prevent ice crystal formation. The latter is one of the main defects in ice cream, and this is why you see various ingredients in ice creams. At Wisconsin, they use gelatin for this purpose. The final ingredient is also the cheapest. If you place a mixture of cream, milk, sugar, and flavor in your freezer, what you get is a concoction that is hard and unpalatable. What's missing is air. By whipping in air, the ice cream becomes softer, lighter, and voluminous. Obviously, it would be tempting to incorporate as much free air as possible. Regular commercial ice cream contains about 50% air, which is the legal maximum. In contrast, premium brands contain only about 20 to 25% air. They cost more, but you get more actual ice cream. Your regular Wisconsin ice cream, by my calculation, is about 40% air. That's just about the same as the UNL Dairy Store ice cream. The bottom line is that the ice cream from the UNL and UW Dairy Store have very similar compositions. Of course, the final product is more than the sum of its parts. Mixing, pasteurization, freezing, and storage conditions also influence product quality. As I recall from my last visit to Madison several years ago, the UW made ice cream was pretty good. But best ever? I'm from St. Louis, so I don't think Wisconsin even makes the best beer. Pop.
Oh, okay. I like Wisconsin beer. This is Heloise Household Hints. Dear Heloise, I use a slow cooker for corned beef. I like to make a bed of cut up apples, then put in the corned beef on top and cover with more apples. There is no need to peel or core the apples as they are thrown away after cooking. The apples pull salt from the beef, leaving moist, delicious meat. Apples can also be used for ham for the same reason. Signed, Joan A. Winchester, Virginia. Dear Heloise, I remember you had a recipe for a Vienna-style coffee. Can you reprint it? Signed, Janice R. in Dallas. Glad you asked, Janice. You'll need 1/2 cup instant coffee granules or 1/2 cup brewed coffee, 2/3 cup granulated sugar or an equivalent amount of artificial sweetener, 2/3 cup powdered milk or powdered coffee creamer, 1/2 teaspoon ground cinnamon. Mix the ingredients together and store in a labeled container. If you enjoy flavored drinks, then you'll love my coffee and tea pamphlet. To receive a copy, send $3 along with a self-addressed stamped envelope to Heloise/Coffee and Tea, P.O. Box 7950001, San Antonio, Texas 78279-5001. You're not going to remember any of that. Or you can order it online at www.heloise.com. Have you burned the bottom of your glass coffee carafe? Pour some table salt into the carafe, let it sit a few minutes, add a couple of ice cubes and swish the mixture around, then rinse. Dear Heloise, my mother taught me that when I bake a chocolate cake, I should sprinkle the pans with cocoa powder instead of using flour. This way, the flavor of the cake is enhanced by the cocoa. Signed, Taylor W. of Sheboygan, Michigan. Dear Heloise, how did you know that an egg slicer can be used for other tasks besides slicing eggs? Actually, it says, did you know? I slice mushrooms upside down with an egg slicer to make nice unified pieces. It also does a nice job on bananas and strawberries. Signed, Juno S. in Loveland, Colorado. Dear Heloise, my son and I were talking about different beverages and how much sugar is in most of them. My son came up with the idea of diluting the tea or lemonade with half water. This way, you will be getting less sugar and more water. Signed, a mother in Ohio. And Heloise responds, surely another way of cutting calories and reducing sugar is to add a little club soda to give your drink some sparkle and fizz. Dear Heloise, I have an odor in my microwave oven. How can I get rid of the smell? Signed, a reader via email. Heloise responds, in a 4-cup microwave-safe bowl, mix 2 tablespoons of either baking soda or lemon juice with 1 cup of water. Bring to a boil in the microwave, then turn off the microwave. Do not open the door for 15 minutes. The water is superheated and could scald you. Instead, let it stand for 15 minutes to cool. Wipe all the surfaces to remove any grime.
This one is an article from Elizabeth Carmel. This summer, my sister, Mary Pat, traveled to Italy on a bike tour. One of the advantages of biking through Italy is that you can eat anything and everything you want and not worry a bit about the calories. Turns out my sister's favorite dish was exactly a healthy dish of local zucchini, tomato sauce, basil, and fresh mozzarella. It was served to her in a generous square like lasagna, but instead of noodles, the layers were made up of thinly sliced zucchini. Once she got home, she started experimenting and recreating what she ate from taste memory. And of course, she told me about it. It sounded so simple, yet so delicious that I had to try it. I have now made it 3 times and decided to write it down and pass it along, since there is still so much beautiful zucchini and squash available in the farmers markets. In most towns, you also can buy good zucchini all year long. This is one of those dishes where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. This dish has the simple flavors of Italy, tomatoes, basil, and mozzarella, layered between thin slices of zucchini, but the end result is positively addicting. Once you make it, you will find yourself making it again and again, like my sister and me. It is savory and just rich enough to be craveable, but light enough that you feel you are eating a dish straight from the garden. Before you assemble the dish, you must slice the zucchini with a mandolin and salt it to remove the excess moisture. It helps reduce the amount of liquid that cooks out, but it also seasons each slice of zucchini, making for a perfectly balanced dish. You also need to rinse the excess salt from the squash, or the dish will be too salty, and you need to dry the zucchini. The beauty of this dish is that you can make the dish in advance and bake it just before serving, or make it and reheat it. It just is as good reheated as it is freshly made. Bob?
We'll turn now to the business briefs in our respective papers. And retailers sank Tuesday after Amazon said it will raise hourly wages for U.S. employees, and smaller companies continued to stumble. Several big industrial companies rose, pushing the Dow Jones Industrial Average to a record high. The S&P 500 index fell 1.16 points. The Dow added 122.73 points, or 0.5%, to $26,773, points, not dollars. The biggest gains came from industrial companies Boeing, 3M, and Caterpillar. Amazon lost 1.6%, Nike lost 2%, and Gap sank 4.9%. Smaller consumer-focused companies fared even worse. Crocs dropped 6.8%, and Guess skidded 6.7%. And the Dow today is up again. Right now it's the Dow's actually kind of hovering around where it was, but the market in general is up. 2 new businesses will fill the vacated Gordman stores down on South 15th Street at Wolf Creek Plaza in the next year in Bellevue. Jim Risto, president of the Greater Bellevue Area Chamber of Commerce, confirmed that Five Below and Ross Dress for Less will fill the spot. Five Below is a discounted clothing store with more than 700 U.S. locations. It sells products that cost up to $5. The store is mainly geared toward children and teens. Ross Dress for Less is an off-price department store with more than 1,000 locations in the U.S. It sells clothing, footwear, bedding, furniture, jewelry, beauty products, and housewares. The stores are expected to open in 2019. And Delta Airlines is partnering with a pet travel pod startup as it changes its prices and policy for transporting passengers' animal companions. The airline said Tuesday. Delta Airlines struck a partnership with CarePod, saying the Singapore-based startup will help it carry and monitor pets and give real-time updates to customers. The firm offers monitoring, tracking, and logistics software for transporting pets. Sean Cole, vice president of Delta Cargo, said the demand for shipping pets is strong. Delta changed its prices for transporting a pet to vary based on kennel size instead of weight, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reported.
This article out of Boston, Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell said Tuesday that he sees no need to drop the central bank's current gradual approach to raising interest rates. Powell said the combination of steady low inflation and very low unemployment shows the country is going through extraordinary times. The central bank is trying to make sure it doesn't raise rates too quickly and push the country into a recession or move too slowly and set off higher inflation, he said. He added that the Fed's goal of gradual increases in interest rates is an effort to balance those risks and extend the current expansion, now the second longest in U.S. history. Powell's comments, delivered to the annual conference of the National Association of Business Economics, came a week after the central bank approved a third-quarter point hike in its benchmark policy rate, pushing it to a level of 2% to 2.25%. It marked the third rate hike this year and the 8th increase. The Fed began gradually raising rates in December 2015 after a period of 7 years in which it kept its policy rate at a record low near zero to try to lift the economy out of the deep recession. Powell noted in his speech that the unemployment rate stands near a 20-year low of 3.9%, while inflation has risen close to the Fed's 2% target for annual increases in inflation. The Fed's economic forecast is in line with many others that show unemployment remaining below 4% through the end of 2020, with inflation staying near the 2% target over the same period, he said. He was asked by a reporter at his press conference last week whether this forecast was too good to be true. He called that a reasonable question, given that since 1950, the country has never experienced such a long period of low, stable inflation and very low unemployment for such an extended period. He said it runs counter to an economic theory known as the Phillips curve, which argues that low unemployment forces employers to push up wages to compete for scarce workers, triggering more inflation. Bob?
WellCare of Nebraska is proud to bring you today's reading of the Omaha World Herald and Lincoln Journal-Star. For more about WellCare, call today at 1-888-255-2605 or visit www.wellcare.com/Nebraska. And I'm going to let you take off the sports here.
All righty. Well, we'll get ourselves over to the sports page of the Lincoln Journal-Star. The closest Cade Warner ever really came to playing quarterback was when he was a young kid. You can't blame a dad for thinking his son maybe has a pretty good arm, especially when that dad threw for more than 32,000 yards and 208 touchdowns over a dozen NFL seasons and has a bust at the League's Hall of Fame in Camden, Ohio. But every time Kurt Warner prodded his son to take snaps. It ended quickly. After a couple of balls, I'd move right back. I was a center at the time, so that was the closest I got to quarterback, Jade Warner recalled Tuesday. He's no longer a center either, but that's okay. Wide receiver seems to be working out just fine. Warner, a Nebraska redshirt freshman walk-on, rocketed up the depth charts and made his first career start against Purdue last week. Then found himself on the top line alongside Stanley Morgan and J.D. Spillman this week. We saw that in spring ball and even in walkthroughs before spring ball that everybody is going to get reps. And if you can play, you're going to be out there playing. Warner told a throng of reporters. So from the very start, what they were preaching and what they were showing out there, everybody knew that they could play here. It's just a matter of when they will play. Warner's time is now. He played extensively in the Huskers' 42-28 loss to the Boilermakers on Saturday. Early on, he made his presence known, blocking on the perimeter. On NU's final drive of the first half, quarterback Andrew Martinez targeted him 3 straight times, leading to Warner's 2 catches for 16 yards. Martinez on Monday called Warner Mr. Consistent, and head coach Scott Frost said he plays as hard as he can and he's where he's supposed to be. Frost added, you want to see a mark of a good team, find a team where wide receivers block well, because then 4-yard gains turn into 8 and 8-yard gains turn into 40. Warner put up big numbers at Desert Mountain High in Scottsdale, Arizona, setting the state's 11-man football record with 241 career catches, including 179 for 2,204 yards and 32 touchdowns over his final 2 years, but was lightly recruited. That's a good question, the 6'1", 210-pounder responded when asked why he didn't attract more attention with good numbers at a big school. I wish I knew the answer to it. It probably has to do with my speed a little bit. I'm sure that has a little bit to do with it. I don't know why I didn't get offers, but I'm here now and I love it here, so it all worked out. He planned to walk on at Arizona State, hometown, 15 minutes from my house, he said, before former Desert Mountain assistant coach turned Nebraska graduate assistant Blair Tussis convinced him to visit Lincoln in 2016. He came to NU, but suffered an injury his first year on campus, then made some noise this spring, hauling in a 57-yard touchdown late in the April red-white spring game. He stayed consistent through the summer and first month of the season. Now he's a starter. A lot of walk-ons are ballers in high school, and they just have to get their chance to show it, said Warner, who patterns his game after Arizona Cardinals great and family friend Larry Fitzgerald. Being under-recruited in high school, you feel like you can play at the next level, and it's just kind of hard because you don't feel like anybody else thinks you can. He didn't find out he was squarely in the game until shortly before Saturday, saying last week started out same as normal until a couple of guys nursing injuries missed some time and he stepped in. I made some plays and Walters liked me, and I was told Thursday or Friday that I got the nod and that I was either going to start or play a good amount of time, he said. Bob?
In sports briefs, baseball, Minneapolis, 2 years ago, the Minnesota Twins made Derek Falvey their chief baseball officer with the precondition that Paul Molitor remain as manager. Molitor presided over a playoff team and won the American League Manager of the Year award in 2017. But the Twins slipped backward this season. Last week, Falvey and general manager Thad Levine decided the time was right to hire their own manager. Citing pursuit of more productive development by their younger players, Falvey and Levine fired Molitor on Tuesday while offering him an opportunity to remain with the organization in an undefined position in baseball operations. Falvey and other club executives expressed confidence that Molitor would stay with the Twins beyond the 20 years he has already worked for them in various roles. The Twins went 305 to 343 under the 62-year-old Molitor, with one appearance in the playoffs in 2017. They were 78 wins, 84 losses this year. From New York, Major League Baseball's average attendance dropped 4% to 28,830 this year, its lowest mark since 2003 after 14 consecutive seasons topping 30,000. Baltimore's Camden Yards, the White Sox Guaranteed Rate Field, Minnesota's Target Field, Miami's Marlin Park, and Pittsburgh's PNC Park drew their smallest attendance numbers since opening as part of a ballpark boom. In a season of unusually cold and wet weather, 17 of the 30 teams experienced drops. Major League Baseball said the decrease was primarily connected to the historically bad weather we faced back in the spring, and noted that the percentage drop decreased markedly after May 1. Total attendance fell to 69.63 million from 72.67 million last year and a high of 79.5 million in 2007. The average is down 12% from its high of 32,785 in 2007 and last year before the Great Recession. It had not been this low since it was 28,013 in 2003. In pro football news, the NFL suspended Seattle Seahawks linebacker Michael Kendricks indefinitely on Tuesday after he pleaded guilty last month to federal insider trading charges. Kendricks was suspended under the personnel conduct policy, said league spokesman Brian McCarthy. A suspension had been anticipated since his guilty plea in early September. Seattle signed Kendricks prior to week 2 because of a need at linebacker with KJ Wright out following knee surgery. It was a controversial signing because Kendricks had pleaded guilty in federal court only days earlier. In college football, Clemson coach Dabo Swinney says injured quarterback Trevor Lawrence will play Saturday against Wake Forest. Lawrence missed the second half of number 4 Clemson's 27-23 win over Syracuse last week after taking a hard hit right before halftime. At first, Swinney said Lawrence had concussion-like symptoms. On Monday, coaches said Lawrence's injury was more of a neck strain. In golf, from Nebraska City, former Huskers golfers Mike Colgate and Brandon Crick are in the top 10 after Tuesday's first round of first stage web.com touring qualifying at Arbor Links. Colgate is tied for 4th at 67, and Crick, a tour veteran, is tied for 8th at 68. The top 21 in ties after Friday's final round advanced to second stage events in November. Ex-Creighton golfer Cade Brown shot 79.
Beast mode. When Nebraska volleyball player Lauren Stevens reaches beast mode status in a match, she's as good as any middle blocker in the country, Coach John Cook says. Beast mode means performing something with extreme power, skill, or determination. And if you've seen Stevens flying off one foot for a slide attack kill, getting a solo stuff, surprising the opponent by dropping in an ace serve, or even digging a few balls, you've seen her in beast mode. The sophomore from Scottsdale, Arizona is one of the reasons third-ranked Nebraska has had a great start to the season that now includes a 13-match winning streak entering Wednesday's 6 p.m. match against Iowa. During 2 wins last week, Stevens was at her best, including a match for the record books. In a 3-set victory at Northwestern, Stevens was a perfect 10 for 10 on kills, getting a kill on each of her hitting attempts with no errors. She's the first college player since 2016 to hit 1,000 with at least 10 kills, and just the third player at Nebraska to do so. In that match, she got several kills on the slide attack, a few on tips, and crushed back and overpass. It wasn't until Stevens reached the team bus after the match when she learned she hadn't missed a chance for a kill. I had no idea, Stephens said. Nicklin Heen said something as I was getting on the bus, and I was like, huh? That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. After hearing how rare it is to have a perfect match as a hitter, Stephens felt an even bigger sense of accomplishment. She can't remember ever having a perfect hitting percentage at any level. To Stephens, achieving a match like that means getting in the zone and trusting your teammates and yourself. I owe a lot of it to our passers because it's tough to get the middles if the pass isn't there. So Mackenzie Maloney and all our, and I love this, little defensive specialist and Michaela Fecky were putting it right on the money for me. And Nicklin, of course, was pushing me perfect sets, Stephens said. It's easy to go beast mode when everything is kind of working out like it should. Stephens came back the next night with another good match in a 4-set win against Illinois. She had 8 kills and 4 blocks. She also led the team with 3 aces. That's beast mode right there in the middle, Cook said. By letting Stephens serve this season and by attempting to set her a lot during matches, Cook says the Huskers are giving Stephens a chance to dominate. She has a chance to impact the matches in a lot of ways, Cook said. A lot of middles just think, my job is just to block. Lauren has a lot of ways she can help our team win. Stephens ranks 3rd on the team in kills with 107. Her .398 hitting percentage leads the team and ranks 4th in the Big Ten Conference. She's had a 400 or higher hitting percentage in 6 matches. Her kills per set average 2.14 hitting percentage and blocks per set 1.06 are improvements from her freshman season. She's made the all-tournament team in 2 of the Huskers' 3 tournaments. Physically, Stephens is at another level, Cook said, and that shows when she sprints to the outside, jumps, and rips a cross-court kill on a tight angle. She's also learning how to be most effective. I just think she has a mindset that she's willing this team to win, Cook said. Last year, she was kind of just along for the ride.
These are a few of the Nebraska notes for this week. By all accounts, Lamar Jackson continues to respond well this week after being benched in the second quarter against Purdue on Saturday. The junior cornerback is focused and doesn't seem to be listening to outside opinions, safety Deontay Williams said. He's going harder in practice. Williams said, you got to go harder. You lost your spot, so you want to win back your spot. You got to be that dog and go get your spot back. Defensive backs coach Travis Fisher said he wants to see more from the veteran from California. When adversity hits, you got to do one of 2 things, stay on the ground and get up and fight. One of the 2, Fisher said. Right now, he's not fighting. Big, physical, imposing Nebraska defensive line coach Mike Dawson sees all of those qualities in Wisconsin's offensive line, which may have no peer in college football. When I first put them on film, I thought they looked like the Dallas Cowboys offensive line, Dawson quipped Tuesday. Their size, their type of mentality, all of that. It'll be NU's second game this season against an offense with roots in the power run game. Nebraska's run-in with Michigan didn't go so well. The Huskers gave up 285 rushing yards at 6.3 yards per tote. We've got to be able to knock people backwards, Dawson said. That means defensive linemen getting their hands on offensive linemen and resetting the scrimmage behind where the Badgers originally snapped the ball. NU defenders can't jump through gaps because Wisconsin, with its zone blocking scheme, will simply let its linemen ride undisciplined defensive linemen out of the play, creating big cutback lanes. Fisher said that junior cornerback Eric Lee's practice habits and attitude changed after Fisher didn't give him what he was used to, that is playing time. Freshman Cam Taylor was held out of last week's game, Fisher said, due to training staff decision. Fisher said he doesn't know if he'll rotate Lee with Taylor or some other cornerback at Wisconsin. I have no problem with who I put in the game, Fisher said. If they're in there, they're in. That's probably because during the week they gave it all they could. Fisher said he's impressed with sophomore cornerback DiCaprio Boodle. He's wearing that black shirt for a reason, but coaches are pushing Boodle hard during games to make more interceptions. Boodle leads the Big Ten with 10 pass breakups. I've been driving him on that, and a couple of times in the game, a couple of those pass breakups could have been picks, Fisher said. He doesn't get to hear the attaboy when he comes to the sideline from me. He hears what he needs to hear, and that's go get the football. Chenander said Junior Jacob Winemaster knows what he's doing and just needs more reps as he slides into the backup inside linebacker role in the wake of Will Hona's season-ending knee injury. The coach added that true freshman walk-ons Joseph Johnson of Gretna and Chris Cassidy of Lincoln Pius X will get more reps as emergency linebackers too. And it's time, top of the hour here, time for us to roll up our papers for other programming. This is Bob Gotting. It's been a pleasure reading for you today, and have a great rest of the week.
And this is Paul Murphy, reading articles from the Lincoln Journal-Star saying, have a great day and a blessed day.
Thank you very much, Bob Godding. And
Okay,
Paul
I gotta go
Murphy for
get
doing
my
a
haircut.
splendid job.
Get your hair cut.
Get my hair cut and get home.
Book Network in Omaha, Nebraska.
Have a good one. I will be gone next week.
For 44 years.
I'll be in Albuquerque.
Radio Talking Book is brought to you with the cooperation of KIOS FM Omaha and statewide through the facilities of KT Radio and Television. And ladies and gentlemen, before we go on to the grocery ads, you may remember yesterday I was talking a little bit about anniversaries. And we have another anniversary today. Jane Nielsen has been our executive director for 2 years now. This is her second anniversary. So she started one day after I did, but 1 year before. That's a little confusing for me. Anyway, happy anniversary, Jane. You've been a wonderful boss to work for the last year. Everybody loves you here at Radio Talking Book, the volunteers, the staff, the listeners. So thank you for the wonderful job that you're doing. With that said, this is Radio Talking Book. Stay tuned for the grocery ads coming up next, right here on RTBN. Have a great afternoon, folks, and stay cool.
He wears shorts. My mailman wears it. There are times I go, really? Really?
Trying to change it. For letting your politics. I'm rather give our lunch.
Who's he talking to, Doug? Oh, Merv.
I would be surprised if any of my comrades were in favor of this new type of taxation. I just choose to do something about it.
I'm gonna send him an email saying I'll pay his extra tax for it. Well, this is taken care of, sir. My pleasure.
Yep, they're done. Shoot, you missed it. Oh, well. How are you? Cool. So here's the last. This barracks plugs
I'm
into
taking
the
John
internet
home with me.
connection. And then if the facility has closed circuits, this can be broadcast out through this box. We have this in VA hospital here and in Grand Island, all 3 Methodist hospitals, and a number of care facilities that have closed circuit. So, and we can also use it in someone's home if nothing else works.
I mean, I don't know how often we have children.
Well,
We do have a closed circuit channel.
Yeah.
And we have story time. It comes on that every evening, which is employees, including myself, reading books.
Yeah. The thing, our programming probably, it's news.
Well, yeah, so it's
So
not
it
really.
wouldn't be kid
Right,
stuff,
right,
but
right.
you can have, here's something, do you have a lot of bilingual or Hispanic parents? Well, Becca and I made a presentation to, yes, sure. And it was to teachers. They are
In all actuality. Oh, gosh. Every school. Our